Today on Outside the Box Reviews, Alien Week continues, and today we're looking at the McFarlane Movie Maniacs Series 6, and this is the Alien Warrior from Alien Resurrection. Now I know there is not exactly as much love for Resurrection as there is for a lot of the other movies, but I actually do enjoy the movie a fair amount. It's definitely not the same kind of beast as the first two, but it's an enjoyable movie in its own right, I think. And for this movie, they really did redesign the alien costume, so we have a very unique alien figure here. So let's take a closer look. Being a Movie Maniacs figure, it comes with its little movie card display, and being a Movie Maniacs figure from later on in the line, it's cheap as hell. When these first came out, we had this entire huge display, a big frame for the piece. And then they later moved on to giving us the base with a side piece. And the later releases like this, you get this little base with two little forks in the back to hold it up, and a card. And I got this new out of the package, warped just like this, so really kind of crummy. There's no way I'd ever want to display this. I mean, not that that's a very interesting poster anyway, but just really lame. So this goes in a box, never brought out, never displayed. Now the alien itself, I feel like there's a lot of good work on it. It's pretty much what you'd expect from McFarlane, if that means anything. Unfortunately, right out of the box, I started picking it up, moving the parts around, and I thought all the joints were moving just fine. I was rotating this arm here, and then I found out I wasn't really rotating it, I was ripping it off. So the arm has come off. I did manage to fix it. I stuck a nail in there, it's glued in there, it pegs into the hole. I still get the same articulation, really, and it's just a little worse looking, but it does work, it stays on, it's okay fix on my part. Now, this alien has a lot of weird little things on it, and I feel like McFarlane exaggerated a lot of details on it, and didn't exaggerate some things that needed to be exaggerated. One issue of mine is the head. The head is on the small side. It just really doesn't look quite right. If we bring in the NECA Alien Warrior from Aliens, you can see how much longer that head is and how much larger it is, and the Resurrection head just looks so tiny by comparison. And these figures go well together in scale, too. The dome on the head also is supposed to come up to a bit of a point at the top. We don't really get that here. It's still a smooth dome. There's a seam running right down the middle of it, so they almost could have just cheated and had that seam be the pointy top, but not really having that detail. I do like that they gave it the pointy chin that it does have. The teeth are a nice metallic silver. The paint on it I really do like. The reds on top of the darker inner fillings. Basically a red dry brush, a reddish brown dry brush over a very dark interior. The dome is kind of a greenish brown. There's some speckling here in the back, which I think is actually deterioration to the figure. I mentioned I got this fresh out of package, but it had been sitting in that package for quite some time. The package was yellowed to hell. I got it secondhand, and I think this may have been partly due to that, maybe some sun damage through the box. I know McFarlane toys have a tendency of having the package yellow, at least the old figures. The package, normally I find it very yellowed, but I think there's been some serious sun damage to this guy inside. Definitely heat damage, if nothing else. Coming down, he's got the grooves over the shoulder. Not quite as pronounced as the older Alien designs. I like the arm. You see like all the tendony looking bits coming down. Still loving that coloration. The forearm, he has this fin here. Now, looking back at stills from the movie, this is not nearly as pronounced in the movie. That's really tiny and very close to the arm. And McFarlane just really exaggerated this piece out. The hands as well, I feel, are oversized. I think McFarlane does this a lot with alien figures, that they make these oversized hands on them, but this is just enormous. I mean, you have to imagine this is a man in a suit, still able to operate these fingers, and that hand is just way too big to make that plausible. I do like that they have the holes in the hand. It's just cool looking. I mean, the hands are well sculpted, they're just way too big. On the chest here, we have the exaggerated ribs, which I really like. They look really cool on this figure. There's a piece here. It's a rubberized piece. It looks like the rest of the skin. And I can never tell if it goes in or out. You could pull it out and it sits in front of this rib gap, which isn't movie accurate. But you stuff it in there and it limits the articulation. And it really just kind of gets in the way. But, you know, he has an ab joint right there. And that piece really gets in the way. You turn it, it also kind of bends. I like the idea, but it doesn't really work well. Somebody could let me know if they think this piece goes in or out. I'd love to know what the official verdict is. Flip him around to the back side, he's got his long, tenderly looking things out the back. I love the design on these. They look really cool, just more organic than normal. Spinal ridge, which was exaggerated in this movie, which looks pretty good on the figure. In the lower body here, we have the exaggerated out hips, a lot more good detail in there. One part I really like is they have these soft rubber bits that go over top of the leg, and it really helps to hide the joint, so I really do like that thing in there, and it still gets you the full range of articulation in there as well. This is a really clever way to hide that joint. The legs are well done. These are pretty much pre-posed. There's some holes in it, the back bent legs. He's got his big, gnarly feet. Once again, I feel like they're a bit oversized. But they're cool looking. They're very cool looking. One thing about the way the legs are done in this figure is you're kind of forced into having a very wide stance with him. So he does take up a lot of shelf space, whether you want him to or not. Flipping back around, we have his tail. As usual, it has the bendy wire in it, so it's posable. Though my other example of me thinking that there's heat or sun damage to this figure is the tail is warped. It's flipped totally upside down here at the back, which really stinks, because it's a really nice looking tail, and I wish I could heat it back up and get it, but I can't get it to stay upright. But it has a big, large fin in the back, which is movie accurate. I don't think it was quite this big, but the thing that helps him swim in the water, and then it's big, large spike there. For articulation, you could rotate the head side to side, up and down on a hinge, which is pretty nice. It's always kind of cocked slightly sideways, which is a little annoying. I kind of wish you just had a ball joint at the base of the neck. That would have been ideal for this figure. Swivel at the upper arm, swivel at the elbow, or just above the elbow, and swivel at the wrist. The arms are pre-posed in a very odd way. This one's not too bad, because it's more outreached, and you can do a little more with it. This one, it's a heavily bent elbow and a very bent wrist. It's kind of an awkward hand. I just don't know what to do with it when I pose him. You have the mid-torso joint, you have the ab crunch and swivel. Once again, this piece in here gets in the way. If we bend him far backwards, you can pluck that out, and you can see he does have a great range of motion without it. He gets a good ab crunch and a good side-to-side. So I kind of prefer to just leave this piece sticking out. Down here at his legs, he can go out to the side, forwards, and backwards. No joints going down the legs, but he does have a bend at the ankle. Now, seeing the way this figure poses, he really, really could have benefited from an ankle pivot, and the way the joint's in here, it looks like it wouldn't have been that hard to do. I mean, granted, older figures kind of tend not to have that kind of joint, but it would have been great to have like an ankle pivot on him so that when he gets those wide stances, you could balance him a little better. And of course, if we're counting articulation, the tail does have the bendy wire and can also swivel where it attaches to the body. When all said and done, I really don't know how to grade this figure. I don't know if I recommend him or not. The movie poster that it comes with, that all Movie Maniacs come with, is really disappointing in the cheapness that McFarlane got into it. I almost wish they just wouldn't have included it. The arm breaking off in the package is a bummer. The damage to this with the twisted tail and the spotting on the head is really obnoxious, just from a posability point of view. The pre-bent arms, the articulation really just needs to be better overall. I mean, I know this was way before the NECA stuff, but I really think it needs some extra little bits. Maybe the legs, I really don't care about the legs being so pre-posed, with the exception of the ankle pivot I talked about, but the arms needed a good bicep swivel and maybe an elbow joint in them. I think that would really have helped this figure. But I do like the sculpt. It's fairly movie accurate. As I mentioned, some things are exaggerated way more than they should be, but it works okay. The paint I do enjoy. It's pretty movie accurate as well. But I'm torn. I am really torn on how to grade this figure. I guess because I can't definitively say you should go out and get it, I'm going to give it the smallest, the tiniest, slightly over the edge of not recommends. Unless you're, an Alien Resurrection fan, which I don't think many people are, diehard Alien Resurrection fans. You really don't need this figure in your collection. To me personally, it was, I had the first two Aliens, I had the Part 3 Alien. Why don't I just round out the quadrilogy and have all four hero aliens? I think what we could hope for with this is with NECA's renewed interest in the Alien line, doing more figures this year. I know they've talked about, I was just reading an article this morning, that basically how far the Alien line goes depends on how much fan support. Like the Predator line, people snatch those things up, and that's why we've gotten so many obscure Predators in that line. And if we could do the same for Alien, if us fans go out there and buy the new figures in droves, we may see an Alien Resurrection figure down the line because they'll do what they did with Predator, which I would love to see. So, the mildest, tiniest not recommend for this guy, but still not a horrible figure by any means. Just kind of a mediocre figure. It's been another Outside the Box review, and stay tuned as Alien Week continues.